Russia, 1917. The world's biggest empire is on its last legs. War is draining it dry, people are starving, strikes paralyze cities. The cracks aren't just visible, they're tearing everything apart. In February, Tsar Nicholas II abdicates. 300 years of Romanov dynasty, gone faster than last week's leftovers. A provisional government steps in, hoping to calm the storm, but they can't deliver the three things everyone's desperate for: land, peace, and food. That's when Vladimir Lenin and the Bolsheviks crash the party. Back from exile, loaded with radical ideas and zero patience, they make their move. In October, they don't just ask for power, they take it, flipping Russia upside down overnight in the October Revolution. But instead of calm, civil war breaks loose. Reds, Bolsheviks, versus whites, royalists, Republicans, foreign armies. Pretty much anyone not wearing red. It's chaos, brutal and bloody. By 1922, after 5 long years, the Bolsheviks come out on top. The Union of Soviet Socialist Republics is born, a federation pulling together Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and the Caucasus republics. It's no longer just Russia. It's something new and ambitious. A one-party communist state with dreams of rapid industrialization and exporting revolution around the globe. Lenin sets the rules. State control of everything, collective ownership, and an iron grip on power. But just as the blueprints are dry, Lenin's health crashes. By 1924, he's gone. The USSR is alive and kicking. And now the big question, who's in charge next? Joseph Stalin steps in. The man, the myth, and the mustache that meant business. When Lenin dies, Stalin doesn't just take power politely. He eliminates his rivals one by one. Trotsky gets exiled, chased across the world, and eventually assassinated with an ice pick in Mexico. The others, sent to gulags, executed, or erased from history like they never existed. By the end of the 1920s, Stalin controls everything. He launches the 5-year plans, a crash course in turning a poor farming country into an industrial giant. Factories rise fast, railways stretch for miles, steel and coal production explode, dams, cities, and entire industries get built almost overnight. But behind that success, millions die from famine, especially in Ukraine during the Holodomor, and everyday people live in fear of secret police, prison camps, and purges. Stalin's dream of greatness comes with a heavy price, but no one can deny the USSR is now a serious global power. Then comes World War II. In 1941, Hitler breaks his non-aggression pact with Stalin and launches a massive invasion. The Soviet Union takes hit after hit. Cities burn, millions die, and it looks like they might collapse. But Stalin holds the line. They move entire factories east, regroup the Red Army, and by 1943, at the Battle of Stalingrad, they turn the war around. From there, the Red Army pushes west fast, through Eastern Europe, all the way to Berlin. By 1945, Soviet flags fly over Berlin. Stalin is no longer just a survivor. He's one of the most powerful leaders on Earth. At Yalta and Potsdam, he helps redraw the map of Europe, and suddenly half the continent falls under Soviet influence. The USSR isn't just a country anymore. It's a superpower that's here to stay. Welcome to the Cold War, a global standoff where the world splits between Coca-Cola and Kalashnikovs. On one side, the capitalist West. On the other, the communist East. The USSR locks down Eastern Europe, setting up the Eastern Bloc, a collection of satellite states controlled tightly from Moscow. Whether those countries are excited about it or not, the West responds with NATO, and soon both sides start building nuclear weapons like kids collecting Pokemon cards. Except these ones can end civilization. It's not just bombs though, it's spies, secret missions, double agents, propaganda wars, and a space race that sends humans hurtling into orbit just to prove whose ideology is cooler. In 1953, Stalin finally dies. Millions breathe easier, and Nikita Khrushchev takes over. He tries to clean things up a bit and de-Stalinize, but make no mistake, Moscow still keeps its boot firmly pressed on Eastern Europe's neck. Then there's the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, a moment when the world comes about 5 minutes from nuclear Armageddon, and everyone suddenly starts sweating bullets. And by bullets, we mean ballistic missiles. After Khrushchev, Leonid Brezhnev steps in. His idea of leadership? Less reform, more tanks, and a big dose of political stagnation. In 1968, when Prague Spring dares to push for a little freedom in Czechoslovakia, Soviet tanks roll in and crush it like it's nothing. The 1970s and early 80s, more proxy wars. Vietnam, Angola, Korea, everywhere you look, the USSR and USA are backing opposite sides, turning local conflicts into global chess matches. In 1979, Soviet troops invade Afghanistan, hoping for a quick win. Spoiler, it's not quick, and it's definitely not a win. By the 1980s, the Soviet Union is still flexing its muscles, but behind the scenes, the cracks are starting to show. Enter Mikhail Gorbachev, young, smiling, rocking that famous forehead birthmark, and full of big reform dreams. He rolls out glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring, which basically translates to, we need to fix this sinking ship fast. The plan is to modernize, loosen up, and maybe even make life a little less grim. But here's the thing about opening Pandora's box. Once you lift the lid, everything spills out. Across Eastern Europe, Soviet satellite states start slipping through Moscow's fingers. East Germany, Poland, Czechoslovakia. They ditch Soviet control faster than people ghosting a bad first date. In 1989, the Berlin Wall comes crashing down, and with it, the symbolic divide between East and West. Back home, things unravel just as quickly. The economy tanks, republics declare independence one after another, and by 1991, the writing is on the wall. On live TV, Gorbachev resigns, calmly signing off as if he's wrapping up a late-night talk show. The USSR dissolves, and for the first time in nearly 70 years, the red flag is lowered from the Kremlin. Just like that, one of history's greatest superpowers is gone. So, what was it really like to live in the Soviet Union? On paper, the state promised it all: free healthcare, free education, a job for life, cheap housing, no unemployment, no homelessness. For millions, especially early on, that security was real, but everything came with strings. The state controlled where you worked, lived, even if you could move cities. Consumer goods? Scarce. Long lines for bread, shoes, even toilet paper were just part of life. If the West was drowning in choice, the USSR made do with less and got creative when shelves were empty. Still, it wasn't all gray blocks and shortages. Education, especially in science and math, was world-class. Soviet schools turned out brilliant minds. Arts flourished too. Ballet, theater, literature, chess. If you wanted to be a grandmaster, this was your stage. And there was pride. Victory in World War II, the space race, Olympic gold. These weren't just headlines. They were proof the Soviet model could compete. Sacrifices felt worth it if you were building a superpower. Of course, speak too freely and the KGB might come knocking. Dissent was risky, and people learned fast. Keep your head down, share toasts with friends, save politics for whispers. In the end, life behind the red curtain was both pride and pressure. For some, it was a golden age. For others, just survival. But for all, it was home. The Soviet Union might be gone, but let's be real. Its ghost didn't just vanish overnight. Russia inherits the nukes, the UN veto power, and a heavy dose of nostalgia for the old superpower days. Suddenly, the map looks very different. 15 new countries emerge from the Soviet ashes, and Moscow's empire shrinks back to Russia's borders. The Cold War wraps up, But global tensions? They don't disappear. They just change shape. Old alliances shift, new rivalries spark, and those Soviet fingerprints stay all over modern geopolitics. From space tech to spycraft, energy wars to border disputes, the Soviet legacy is hardwired into today's world. The USSR didn't just influence the 20th century, it defined it. From revolutions to gulags, from tanks to spacewalks, the Soviet Union rose, ruled, and crumbled. But its impact, still echoing loud and clear. Thanks for watching Historify. See you in the next one.